Ever wondered why sometimes being too nice actually backfires? No one has told you this yet, but the dark secret behind kindness is that it can actually harm you. Yes, you heard that right. What if I told you that being too nice might be the very thing that's holding you back, trapping you in a cycle of self-neglect and invisible suffering? We're going to dive deep into the world of toxic kindness, what it is, why it happens, and how you can break free from its chains. Stick around because by the end of this video, you'll see why it's time to stop letting others take advantage of your kindness and start living life on your own terms. Segment 1. The myth of kindness. Let's start by tackling a common myth, the belief that kindness is always good. It's something we've all grown up with, this idea that we should be nice, generous, and accommodating at all times. We're taught that being a good person means saying yes to everyone and everything. But let's be real, how often has this backfired on you? Think about it. Have you ever been so kind that you forgot about yourself? Maybe you agreed to help a friend move, even though you were exhausted and had a ton of your own stuff to do. Or perhaps you lent someone money that you couldn't really afford to lose because you didn't want to seem selfish. We've all done it. We've all sacrificed our own needs in the name of kindness, thinking it makes us better people. But here's the harsh truth. Kindness isn't always good. In fact, when it's taken to the extreme, it can become toxic. You start putting others' needs above your own, and before you know it, you're a shadow of the person you once were. You've lost your sense of self, your confidence, and your own happiness, all in the name of being nice. Now, I'm not saying you should be rude or inconsiderate, far from it. Kindness is a beautiful thing when it's genuine and comes from a place of strength. But when it becomes a compulsion, when you're nice to everyone at the expense of yourself, that's when it turns toxic. Segment 2. The roots of toxic kindness. So, where does this toxic kindness come from? Why do so many of us fall into this trap? One reason is our upbringing. From a young age, we're taught to be polite, to share, and to put others first. These are good lessons, but they can become harmful when taken to the extreme. If you were raised in an environment where you were constantly told to be nice and don't make waves, you might have learned to suppress your own needs and desires in favor of keeping others happy. Another reason is our fear of rejection. Let's face it, no one likes to be rejected. We all want to be liked, to be accepted, and to belong. And sometimes we think the best way to do that is to be overly accommodating, to say yes to everything, and to never rock the boat. We think that by being nice, we'll win people over and avoid conflict. But in reality, this often leads to people taking advantage of us. Toxic kindness also stems from a lack of self-worth. When you don't believe you're valuable, you might feel the need to prove your worth by being excessively kind. You might think that the only way people will like you or want to be around you is if you're always doing things for them. This creates a cycle where you constantly give and give, hoping for validation, but never truly feeling fulfilled. This kind of behavior can be exhausting. It drains your energy, your time, and your emotional resources. And over time, it can lead to burnout, resentment, and even depression. You start to feel like you're being used, like no one really cares about you. They only care about what you can do for them. Segment 3. The consequences of toxic kindness. Now, let's talk about the consequences of toxic kindness, because make no mistake, there are consequences, and they can be pretty serious. First off, there's the issue of invisibility. When you're always putting others first, you start to fade into the background. Your needs, your desires, and your opinions become secondary, and eventually they disappear altogether. You become so focused on making others happy that you forget about your own happiness. You stop standing up for yourself, stop expressing your true feelings, and stop pursuing your own goals. In a way, you become invisible not just to others, but to yourself. Then there's self-neglect. When you're constantly giving to others, there's often little left for yourself. You might neglect your health, your mental well-being, or your personal development, because you're so busy taking care of everyone else. You might skip workouts, ignore your hobbies, or put off important tasks because you're too focused on helping others. Over time, this neglect can take a serious toll on your well-being. Another consequence is resentment. No matter how much you want to be kind, no one can give endlessly without feeling some resentment. When you keep saying yes to others while neglecting your own needs, that resentment starts to build up. You might not even realize it at first, but eventually, it will come out, whether in the form of passive-aggressive behavior, outbursts of anger, or just a general feeling of bitterness. Toxic kindness can also lead to unhealthy relationships. When you're always the one giving, it creates an imbalance in your relationships. The other person might start to take you for granted, expecting you to always be there for them without giving anything in return. This creates a dynamic where you're the giver and they're the taker, which isn't healthy for either party. It can lead to codependency, where you feel like you need to be needed and they feel like they can't function without your help. Lastly, there's the issue of anxiety. When you're constantly worried about pleasing others, it creates a lot of stress and anxiety. You're always second-guessing yourself, wondering if you've done enough, if people like you, if you've upset anyone. This anxiety can become overwhelming, affecting your sleep, your mood, and your overall mental health. Segment 4. Identifying the signs of toxic kindness. So, how do you know if you're suffering from toxic kindness? What are the signs that you might be too nice for your own good? One of the biggest signs is difficulty setting boundaries. If you find it hard to say no to people, even when you really don't want to do something, that's a red flag. Healthy boundaries are essential for any relationship, and if you're constantly letting others cross those boundaries, it's a sign that you might be putting their needs above your own. Another sign is apologizing excessively. Do you apologize for everything, even when you haven't done anything wrong? Do you say sorry when someone bumps into you? Or when you ask a question? This could be a sign that you're too concerned with how others perceive you, and that you're willing to take the blame for things just to keep the peace. Avoiding conflict is another big sign. If you go out of your way to avoid any kind of disagreement or confrontation, even when it's necessary, you might be too focused on being nice. Conflict isn't always bad, in fact. It's often necessary for growth and change. But if you're constantly avoiding it because you don't want to upset anyone, you might be sacrificing your own needs in the process. Another sign is feeling responsible for others' emotions. If you feel like it's your job to make sure everyone around you is happy, and you take it personally when they're not, that's a sign of toxic kindness. You're not responsible for other people's feelings, they are. And trying to manage everyone else's emotions is not only exhausting but also impossible. Lastly, if you often feel burnt out, resentful, or unappreciated, that's a clear sign that you're giving too much and not getting enough in return. These feelings are your body's way of telling you that something needs to change, that you need to start taking care of yourself as well. Segment 5, how to break free from toxic kindness. All right, now that we've identified the problem, let's talk about solutions. How can you break free from toxic kindness and start living a life that's true to you? The first step is to set clear boundaries. This means deciding what you're willing to do for others and what you're not, and then sticking to it. It's okay to say no to things that don't serve you or that you simply don't want to do. It's okay to put yourself first. In fact, it's necessary. When setting boundaries, it's important to be firm but kind. You don't have to be rude or confrontational, just clear. For example, if someone asks you to do something and you don't want to, you can say something like, "I'm sorry, but I can't help with that right now." You don't need to explain yourself or justify your decision. A simple no is enough. Next, start working on building your self-worth. Toxic kindness often stems from a lack of self-esteem, so it's important to start valuing yourself more. This might mean spending more time on self-care, pursuing your passions, or simply treating yourself with the same kindness and compassion that you show to others. It's also important to practice assertiveness. This means expressing your thoughts, feelings, and needs openly and honestly without fear of judgment or rejection. Assertiveness is about standing up for yourself while still respecting others. It's a skill that takes time to develop, but it's crucial for breaking free from toxic kindness. Another important step is to stop apologizing for everything. If you find yourself saying sorry all the time, try to catch yourself and ask if an apology is really necessary. If it's not, skip it. Remember, you don't have to apologize for existing, for having needs, or for standing up for yourself. Practice self-compassion as well. This means being kind to yourself, especially when you make mistakes or fall short of your expectations. Instead of beating yourself up, treat yourself with the same understanding and forgiveness that you would offer a friend. Remember, you're human, you're allowed to have flaws, and you're allowed to prioritize your own well-being. It's also helpful to seek support from others. This might mean talking to a therapist, joining a support group, or simply confiding in a trusted friend. Sometimes it's hard to see the patterns in our own behavior, and getting an outside perspective can be incredibly valuable. Finally, start redefining what kindness means to you. True kindness isn't about self-sacrifice, it's about balance. It's about giving when you can, but not at the expense of your own well-being. It's about being compassionate towards others while also being compassionate towards yourself. Remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. If you're constantly giving to others without taking care of yourself, eventually you'll have nothing left to give. But if you fill your own cup first, you'll have so much more to offer the world, and you'll be doing it from a place of strength, not weakness. Segment 6, the power of saying no. Now, let's dive a little deeper into the power of saying no, because this is one of the most important skills you can develop if you want to break free from toxic kindness. Saying no can be incredibly difficult, especially if you're used to being a people pleaser. You might worry that saying no will make others angry, disappointed, or upset. But here's the truth, saying no is actually a form of self-respect. It's about recognizing your own needs and making them a priority. When you say no to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying yes to yourself. You're creating space in your life for the things that truly matter to you, and you're setting the stage for healthier, more balanced relationships. It's also important to remember that saying no doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you don't care about others or that you're being selfish. In fact, it's the opposite. By saying no when necessary, you're actually being more honest and authentic in your relationships. You're showing others who you really are and what you really need. And that's a good thing. Of course, saying no can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're not used to it. But the more you practice, the easier it will become. Start with small things like declining an invitation to something you don't want to do or saying no to a request that you don't have time for. Over time, you'll build the confidence to say no to bigger things as well. And remember, you don't have to explain yourself. A simple no is enough. You don't owe anyone an explanation for why you're choosing to prioritize your own needs. Your time, energy, and well-being are valuable, and it's okay to protect them. Thanks for sticking with me, Stoic Warriors. We've covered a lot today, from the dark side of kindness to the importance of setting boundaries and saying no. I hope this video has helped you see that kindness isn't about self-sacrifice, it's about balance. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever crossed the line with kindness? How did it affect your life? Drop a comment below, I'm reading them all. And if you're ready to dive deeper into the art of living with purpose and boundaries, check out the audiobooks linked in the description. Trust me, they'll change your life. Remember, kindness is a beautiful thing, but only when it doesn't come at the cost of your own well-being. So be kind, but be wise about it. And don't forget, you deserve the same kindness and compassion that you show to others. Until next time, take care of yourself, set those boundaries, and keep living life on your own terms.